State of the Union address of his second term tonight is Mike Leon, lead anchor at the Legal Podcast Network and host of Can We Please Talk podcast. And we have Grace Riley, political analyst at Restoration for America and host of Restoring America podcast. So first of all, good afternoon to you both. Thank you for joining us today. Grace, I'd like to start with you. What do you expect the tone will be for tonight's message? And what will the messaging come from President Trump look like?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to say that for success, the president needs to focus on patriotism and the economy. And I expect that he'll spend a lot of time doing that because, of course, this will be a speech that's filled with celebrations of patriotism. We obviously see that the United States hockey team will be in attendance. That's just one example, but also of American excellence and success. And as far as the economy goes, that's something that Americans as a whole are going to be watching for, especially my generation, Gen Z. And that being said, Trump will likely spend considerable amounts of time talking about housing affordability via the interest rates and incentives, what he's done to bring inflation down, his saving plans, the Trump accounts for young Americans, and so much more. So I think that that will definitely be central. But of course, he will spend a lot of time talking about his immigration efforts and securing the border efforts. And he will also spend a lot of time talking about what he's done on the world stage. But ultimately, he has an opportunity to reach Americans with a message of hope, 30 million projected to watch, of why his policies are going to continue to create better lives for them and why everything he's doing is going to continue to work towards helping them and improving their lives.
Mike, do you want to see a message of hope from President Trump tonight? What are you expecting?
Hey, Don, good to see you and Grace as well on this Tuesday afternoon. I mean, Don, we've talked about this before. Grace laid out a pie in the sky vision of what a normal, presidential State of the Union address would look like, for sure. That's not what we're going to get tonight from President Trump. I know it's not. I can recite that speech word for word. I know there's going to be, talk about the 2020 election cycle and things that are from the past of yesteryears that have already been adjudicated, but he'll bring those things up. And then when we're talking about with respect to this current administration, I don't necessarily totally agree with everything Chuck Schumer said there and Amy Klobuchar, but I do agree that the president's got to address that he has a very high disapproval rating, 56%, 57% now, according to Real Clear Politics and others, Rasmussen, CNN. The economy right now with respect to tariffs, that Federal Bank Reserve study that was done, that 90% of tariffs are paid by American consumers, and only 10% of whether it be foreign government or businesses are actually eating those tariffs. So 90 is way bigger than 10%, right? That means that the American household, on average, maybe $1,000 to $1,200, maybe even $1,500 or more, are paying for those high costly goods that are tariffed now from these different countries. I know, just as somebody who has a coffee sponsor, as an example, can't grow coffee in the United States, Don, right? You have to outsource it from other countries. So that type of industry is being hit really hard. So will he give solves for that? No, he won't give any solves for that. There'll be some performance element, as there is with every State of the Union address. And hopefully he does, to Grace's point, drill into the future things, because he did say affordability was a Democratic hoax, and at least them talking about affordability and what they've been doing about it. But he has been talking about it and not really giving the plans of what he plans to do about it. And his recent comments about give the economy another year, that's not going to sit well with anybody, especially in the 2026 midterm cycle, where in 2018, Trump lost 40 to 41 seats in the midterm cycle. So that's something that I wish he would outline a little bit more of, but I know he's not done.
Okay, so Grace, according to Mike, President Trump should address his approval rating. I mean, in your view, what should Trump focus his speech on? What should he avoid?
Well, I think that, as he said, what we can take from that is that President Trump actually does have a lot of accomplishments in this area. And I'm sure he will bring up the Biden administration and all that they did to destroy the economy and put us in this position now. And the Trump administration has a lot of good things to report on for the American people when it comes to this, and a lot of progress made in a very short amount of time on things like the economy, also the border, national security, energy, health, and more, all historic things that benefit the American people and should warrant bipartisan celebration. And I want to add in here too, obviously we have a lot of Democrats that have decided to skip the event. And I think politically that is because they know that President Trump is going to list a lot of accomplishments that are going to be hard politically to be seen sitting and not clapping for. Now that happens at every State of the Union. Obviously, it tends to be the biggest political theater event of the year in a lot of ways, just with the Republicans and Democrats both in the room at play here as all of the political issues are brought up. But I think that one of the things that we should all focus on as well is the fact that the American people get to decide for themselves tonight. So obviously you painted a different vision for what you think the State of the Union is going to be. I disagree. I think that it will be a message of hope. And I think he has a lot of really significant accomplishments to focus on. And the American people get to watch tonight and decide for themselves what they think of it. And that's significant because the Media Research Center reports that Trump gets 92% negative coverage. So it's no wonder that there are so many Americans that still need to hear some of the amazing accomplishments that he has. And I'm sure tonight that's going to be a focus. And I'm sure, as you said, he's probably going to talk a bit about the past administration. That would not surprise me at all. And I would suggest that he sticks more with the things that he's been successful on. But overall, it's going to be very interesting for everyone to watch at home and make up their own minds about.
So, Mike, your response, and from what I can tell, gas prices are down. President Trump is tackling healthcare, drug prices, favored nation pricing. I mean, just your overall response to what Grace said.
Well, I agree with the end of what she said there, that everybody can judge for themselves. I mean, again, if we talk about the Biden administration, I mean, if you just look at the jobs reports and how it's come out from fiscal of 25, the last 6 months to now, job growth is down in this country. You know, the one thing that Republican strategists always echoed to me about what Trump shouldn't have been doing, and I quote Karl Rove, who I used to work with once upon a time at Fox News, and he said, you know, Americans feel something, but if you tell them the opposite and they're feeling the opposite, they're not going to listen to you, right? He said that on Fox News, and he said that to me once upon a time in a green room when I was miking him up to go on air. So I think there's a difference there, right? To what Grace was mentioning at the beginning about the economy. If jobs are down and certain sectors are feeling that, and Americans are paying more for certain goods because of tariffs, which tariffs are not only a tax, but they're a negotiating ploy to try to get the price down ultimately, right? They're going to understand that. They're not going to listen to anything that he says. Now, will the president, you know, coherently give me the through line of how he plans to tackle all these things? I just know this man. I'm basing it off of speeches. I'm basing it off of, you know, when he got asked on the campaign trail about 44 million Americans that are in credit card debt. He got asked by a reporter, how do you tackle that? And he gave a 2-minute answer that ended with, just vote for me and I'll take care of it. That's not outlining how you're going to tackle it and how you're going to, you know, the interest rates and the APRs from these companies. So, you know, the State of the Union is performance based, right? In terms of like what you want to tout accomplishment wise, how many, you know, interruptions you get from claps, who's in the audience, which we just heard Jack mention before. Erica Kirk's going to be there. The U.S. hockey team's going to be there. So there's going to be some applause breaks and there's going to be some of that ceremonial aspect of it. I never expect anybody to drill specifically into the policy and the through line and the call to actions. I wish they would, but it would bore half of America. But that's the problem. Half of America doesn't understand what is happening right now. And the president has to deal with some of these real issues because 2026 is here. And this is going to affect the House and the Senate with these races that are going to be happening. And it could change the makeup of what the last 2 years of his administration looks like. So if he truly wants to be this unifying voice that Grace is hoping for, that I know he won't be, if he wants to do that, he needs to really explain some of these things and where the through line is towards the end of 26 that will get more people to vote Republicans because they see that the president is trending in the right direction. I just know based on his history of talking that he's not going to do that, unfortunately.
Okay, Grace, I do have a number of topics to get through. You can give your quick response, but also give us your view on how the Supreme Court's ruling is going to factor into tonight's speech.
Yeah, I'll quickly hit on your question. I think that the Supreme Court ruling is definitely going to come up. Of course, it's very significant that President Trump is going to be right in front of those justices, right? So I'm sure that the ruling on tariffs will come up. I'm sure that he will reference that, and that'll be something to watch for at home. But also, just to hit on what was said, I would say that it's not about looking at Trump's past speeches. We can look at his record and his record of economic success. In his last term, that was probably one of his biggest strengths. And I say one of because he had a lot of strengths, but in this term, already we've seen positive improvements. So inflation at 2.4% compared to Biden's 9%. And he obviously is advocating for how that is going to continue to get better. The Dow hitting 50K for the first time ever on February 6th. Gas prices the lowest in nearly 5 years, as you mentioned, making the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent. So these are all things that we're going to hear tonight. And I think the important thing to recognize, too, that a lot of what Trump has done on the economy so far in this term is geared towards long-term solutions that people are starting to feel now. So for the past year, we've kind of been hoping for that we would start to feel some more of the economic improvements, and that is starting to happen now. And of course, that's going to have to keep happening, especially with the midterms coming up. This is a very consequential State of the Union because of that, with the midterms on the horizon. And as we've talked about in this entire segment, there's no question that that is the issue that Americans are going to particularly be watching for tonight.
So, Mike, earlier we played House Speaker Mike Johnson saying that everyone in the House have constituents. Jeffrey says, we're not going to Donald Trump's house. He's coming to our house. Why are Democrats not attending?
Yeah, well, real quick, Biden inherited 9. He didn't end at 9% in terms of inflation. That's one. Number two, on what you're saying, we were talking about this last week, Don. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, in terms of Democrats, whether they go to this or if they don't go to this. I don't agree with what Mike Johnson said about attending and representing your constituents. It's a State of the Union address. If this is the way they want to, for lack of a better term, peacefully protest and not attend and make, the speech have less people in the room for the acoustic value and what it looks like on television, I'm okay with that. But why aren't Democrats unified in terms of what they're going to do here with respect to this? I mean, that's Democrats' MO, right? In terms of whether or not they're going to be unified behind all doing this, or if they're going to actually, congregate outside, which I know that there are some representatives that are going to be walking out in protest near the National Mall and things like that, and talking to constituents or giving a speech. And there's going to be other speeches that are running concurrent or parallel, or even after all of this is done. It doesn't surprise me what Democrats tend to do when you have Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. This is where Grace and I will probably agree that the leadership of Democrats are just in shambles. And it's why you've seen fracturing within the party, that they can't even get on the same accord here in terms of how they actually respond to some of the things that President Trump has done. It's been like that from his first administration with, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. And now it's with respect to this current administration and the leadership that I've heard from other Dems that have been on my program in terms of, are these the right two men to kind of lead them, into battle with respect to what they want to counter the Trump administration on messaging wise. So it doesn't shock me that they're a little fractured on this, but like we talked about last week, Don, I don't think there was a right way to go at this, whether you attend it fully. I don't agree with what Mike Johnson said. It doesn't matter if they show up or not, but whether or not you go there or not, how does that play? It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for Democrats.
So, Grace, I'm curious as to what you think. Do you think Democratic leadership is in shambles? I mean, there appears to be multiple Democratic responses. Seems to be disagreement as well how to respond to Trump's address tonight.
Yeah, I would agree with Mike on some of it, absolutely. And I would say where I disagree is the fact that historically the State of the Union is for the president to be able to address Congress. And I think that that's important. And obviously with the very divisive political situation that we're in now, modern day, things have changed a lot. But I think things like the State of the Union are important for Congress to at least attend and be there. And then they can go and disagree all they want afterwards. They can act, obviously, if they want to sit and not clap, they're entitled to do that during the State of Union. But as elected officials, I think that that's an important part of representing their constituents. And obviously, the State of the Union is mandated by the Constitution. It happens for a reason. And I think having that dialogue and that time for the president to speak to Congress and give updates is very important and also warrants respect. But I would also say, as far as the Democrats go, yeah, there's obviously a lot of disagreement there. There's a lot of radicalism in the Democrat Party that's divided them even further, some going even further to the left, where others have gone maybe more slightly to the left. So there's disagreement as far as that goes, that's changed the party. And just to be fair, I'd also offer up that Republicans haven't necessarily been unified across the board either. And obviously that's something that as Americans, we want to see from the parties that represent us and from the people in Congress. So I think Americans, it's in Americans' best interest for everyone in Congress to attend this tonight. And obviously the Democrats have made a different decision. And I think that actually will backfire on them, because I think that the speech tonight will come off as patriotic and something talking about American excellence. So we'll have to see.
Okay, Mike, I'll give you one final response and then we'll leave the conversation.
Well, I want to echo what Grace said, right? Everybody can watch it and kind of judge on their own. I will come back onto this clip to take a minor victory lap when I know Trump will wander on some tangents tomorrow. But again, I hope, to what Grace said, I do hope that the President of the United States, the CEO of America, for lack of a better term, does actually outline steps to get us on one accord and do certain things that promote bipartisanship. But I know that President Donald John Trump is not like that, because he has said so in speeches. And my hope is that he does do that, but you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I don't see that happening tonight. So I think we're going to get a lot of the same, and a speech that's going to run a little bit long, and we're going to be overanalyzing it tomorrow morning.
Well, all right, Mike, we'll definitely come back to this clip and see if you're right or wrong. So we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you both for joining us today. Grace, Mike.
Thanks so much.
And tonight, join NTD's Tiffany Meyer, Steve Lance, and Mari Otsu at 7 p.m. Eastern as we track the president ahead of his speech, hear reactions from lawmakers, and speak with panels on what it all means for you. So don't miss it. FedEx is suing the U.S. seeking a refund on President Trump's